the webinar, 5 Things Powerful Women Know and Do in the Commercial Construction Industry. My name is Jennifer, and I will be your moderator for today's session. This session will be provided both audio and web conference. Today's session is being recorded, and all participant lines will be muted during the session. This program will last approximately 60 minutes. If you have a question at any point during today's presentation, you may submit it via the questions box located in the GoToWebinar toolbox on your screen. Questions will be answered during the Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker, Coty Fournier. Coty Fournier is a U.S. commercial construction executive and entrepreneur with sustained success in construction operations and business development on both sides of the owner-contractor equation. She is the co-founder and former CEO of JobSite123.com, acquired by the Blue Book Network in May 2013. In addition to her leadership role on the Blue Book senior management team, she continues to serve the commercial construction industry as one of its most prominent thought leaders for the reconceptualization of industry relationships, business development platforms, and methods for accelerated success. As a change agent and inspirational role model, she is a frequent presenter for chapters of the ABC, AGC, NAWIC, ASPE, and other national industry organizations, and a guest lecturer on fast-track career strategies to hundreds of aspiring young professionals at the University of Florida and other top U.S. construction management schools. Coty also has 2 books scheduled for publication on related topics in 2014. She is an NAWIC scholarship recipient and a summa cum laude graduate of Michigan State University with a Bachelor of Science in Building Construction Management. You are about to hear a lot more about details of her construction experience in just a few minutes. Coty, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the Design and Construction Network group on LinkedIn and to all of you who have joined in today's webinar. You'll soon see that my style is very laid back and unscripted. So I invite you to kick back, put your feet up, and relax into a casual conversation where I will be doing most of the talking, but nonetheless where we can hopefully kick back, relax, and learn something together. So with no further ado, let's get started on 5 things that powerful women know and do in the commercial construction industry. Before we get started, though, let me give you a quick heads up and an acknowledgement to the Blue Book Building and Construction Network. After today's session, I will be sending you all a link to view the Blue Book's new ProView, which is a powerful new tool that leverages your company's complete qualifications in order to attract more project opportunities. So I'll send each of you a link in hopes that it may help you and your companies to be able to showcase and broadcast your company's unique qualifications online in front of project owners, facilities managers, and general contractors, again, to help attract more project opportunities and build your businesses. So please look for that follow-up email from me shortly. Okay, moving on to today's webinar agenda. Here's what we're going to cover. First of all, we're going to talk about 2 voices that are inside your head, most likely on a daily basis, probably even today. And we're going to talk about how to recognize them and how to quiet them and why it's good for you. Number 2, then we're going to talk about the real power of assertiveness. Not the definition of assertive behavior or how to do assertive behavior, but the real power behind why assertiveness is key to your career in the commercial construction industry. Number 3, one of the things I am most known for and people often ask me questions about, what is this thing called the project manager myth? I'm going to talk about it, show you why you need to be aware of it, and then how you can take advantage of it to help your career in the commercial construction industry. And then number 4, I'm going to talk about how it's not really about being liked, not really about being accepted or respected. It's really about a certain other very important thing that you have to do first before being liked, accepted, or respected comes around. I talk about that in detail. And last but not least, just a little hint, I got a huge advantage for you that comes via gratitude and admiration for Dr. Maya Angelou. You might be wondering, what in the heck does Dr. Maya Angelou have to do with the commercial construction industry? Well, I've kind of coined a phrase where it's a very interesting intersection between the two, and I look forward to sharing what I believe is a very, very important distinction about working in the industry. And when you get it, boy, can you write your ticket to the top. So those are the 5 things we're going to cover. And then after the main agenda is over, I'm going to kind of wrap things up by giving you suggestions of 3 things you can start doing right away in order to put what you've learned into action. And also show you how to enter a free raffle where you can win a $500 career coaching session with me if you're interested. And last but not least, as our moderator Jennifer said, we'll have hopefully a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions along the way, as Jennifer said, type them into the question box on the right-hand side of your screen. And if we run out of time and do not have a chance to cover your question, don't worry. We'll keep track of all of them, and then I'll attempt to answer them in a follow-up email. All right? Well, let's get started. Number 1 on the list. We're going to talk about ignoring 2 voices inside your head. The first one I call your Pistol Pete. The second one I call your know-it-all. Let's meet them, shall we? Introducing your Pistol Pete. He looks something like this well-known cartoon character, I'm guessing perhaps in your head. We all have one. All of us who work in the commercial construction industry, we all have one. I think of him as kind of this person who is thinking that all new ideas, anything that comes up is kind of suspect, and that a natural reaction to things is that it won't work, and I can prove it type of behavior. That's what I'm calling your Pistol Pete. And I'm saying that you need to learn to ignore him in many, many circumstances. And here's some background information to help explain my point. In our jobs in the commercial construction industry, they strengthen certain skills and behaviors. And one of them that gets strengthened when you work in the commercial construction industry is your ability to think very critically and your ability to predict problems. It just kind of comes with the territory. And those of you who are maybe new to the industry or in the earlier years of your career, this skill, this Pistol Pete that will be inside you is maybe just now starting to develop. Or maybe you kind of have been like that your whole life, and it's kind of how you're wired naturally, and so you already do it really well, and that might even have been one of the reasons you were attracted to the industry, because you can kind of use your Pistol Pete on a regular basis and let them fly. But nonetheless, we all develop this kind of troubleshooter, if you will, that's inside our head. In fact, this Pistol Pete guy, this Pistol Pete behavior is actually very necessary. If you don't have the ability to do that, then it's very difficult for you to succeed in a lot of positions in the commercial construction industry, especially anything related to project management. So therefore, this troubleshooter exists in all of our heads. He's either in training, if you will, or he's already in full force. I call this guy Pistol Pete inside my head. You can call yours whatever you want. But I call mine Pistol Pete because it's like he lives to spot exceptions or spot errors or omissions or cast doubt over everything and everyone. So I kind of picture this little guy with his pistols and he's like blowing holes and everything. You can call yours whatever you want. But your Pistol Pete that's inside your head will try to convince you that whatever I say today is wrong or not applicable to you, or even in all of life, in all of your career, your Pistol Pete is always kind of right there at bay, and he's constantly questioning and assuming oftentimes that what people are saying or suggesting or purporting is false or problematic. What I'm suggesting to you is that you learn to ignore your Pistol Pete. There are times in your career, today will be one of them, there are times in your career where it's much more appropriate to focus on what is right and what is possible versus what is wrong and what is missing. or what is wrong or what is potentially problematic. And you'll see that that Pistol Pete behavior is applicable in certain situations in your career in the commercial construction industry, and then very damaging in other aspects of your career in the commercial construction industry, especially as you go up the ladder. So part of what I want you to learn today is to recognize that we all have one and learn to silence him or ignore him when his skills are not needed, like, for example, in the learning experience of today. Number 2, this little guy here is Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory, in case some of you may recognize him, but he's a big smarty pants. So I like to use his picture as the ignore your know-it-all visual reference. So this is the guy that's inside your head that's like, yeah, really, yawning at whatever anybody else has to say, and is really more thinking, hey, I kind of already know all of this, tell me something I don't know, blah, 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 blah. We have a lot of that kind of personality in the commercial construction industry as well. So keep in mind that that guy inside your head also needs to be quieted. And keep in mind that one of the things that might help you to keep him quieted today is to realize that you'll learn a few new things today for sure, but some of the stuff that you'll learn today you might already know or kind of sort of already know. But it's important to recognize that some of that stuff that you already know is actually more important than the new things that you might learn today. So when you hear that voice inside your head that, you know, sitting there saying to you, I kind of sort of already know that, hello, tell me something I don't know, learn to ignore him or her, if you will. Keep listening and allow yourself to be reminded, because knowing and doing are not the same thing. And of course, we all get tripped up from time to time in that arena. So decide today to be inspired to act on some of these things that you already kind of sort of know. And you'll be a lot farther along than most people in the industry. So if we take these two voices inside your head, your Pistol Pete and your know-it-all, and we apply not just to how they you need to quiet them for today, but think about how you need to quiet them for your entire career as a whole. You know, when you learn to ignore these two voices, again, which are very strong voices inside most of our heads due to the nature of most of our personalities in the business, that when you learn to ignore them, you will learn faster. And you, of course, will make more friends in the industry, which is also, of course, a very important thing. And this is especially true when you get to the top, where you will want and you will need people to enjoy working with you and working for you. And keep in mind, as Jennifer said at the top of the hour, I have a book coming out later this year that talks about a lot of different strategies for accelerated success in the industry for both men and women. And there's more information about quieting your Pistol Pete and why it is essential in the commercial construction industry for you to learn how to use your Pistol Pete appropriately, to pull out your Pistol Pete and use him when his skills are required, which would be things like evaluating shop drawings, evaluating a contract, evaluating or scoping a bid, right? You want to be able to look for things that are wrong or missing or potentially problematic. But as you go up the ladder and you start getting involved more, less in managing projects and more in managing people and ideas and the company as a whole, you have to learn how to shut your Pistol Pete off. You have to learn how to ignore him. And most people in the commercial construction industry fail to do that. And that's why they can make some messes, if you will, in the top, in the upper ranks, if you will, of an org chart. So this is, it may sound a little bit cute, it may sound a little bit silly on the surface, but take this advice to heart and learn to recognize when your Pistol Pete is firing away inside your head or your know-it-all is firing away inside your head. Because as you grow in your career and as you go higher and higher up the ladder, you will need the skills of your Pistol Pete less and less. And it will be more important to sideline your Pistol Pete and only consult him, if you will, under certain circumstances. So that is strategy and tip number 1. Lastly, silencing your Pistol Pete and your know-it-all will help you because it will give you a psychological edge, if you will, over many other people in the industry. because most people really struggle with their ability to do that, or they cannot do it at all, or they don't even recognize that it's a problem. So walk away today feeling like you know just a little bit of an insider secret that maybe not everybody's aware of, and put it to good use. Okay, moving on to number 2 on our agenda. It's time to talk about the real power of assertiveness. Now, just to go up to 30,000 feet, right, and talk about it kind of like just from a definition level. Like assertive people, they speak up, right? They contribute their opinions. They substantiate ideas to further their objectives and their goals. You know, those are things that you would associate with an assertive person. Also, assertive people consistently ask for what they want. I cannot stress that enough. Assertive people ask for what they want, but they do so in a way that articulates why it is a good idea. Not just asking for what they want, but why it is a good idea. And also, I would say about assertive people that they are highly participative, especially in group settings. And so essentially, what I mean by highly participative, I mean they are non-passive. They are non-passive people. The only time pretty much you see assertive people being passive is if they're doing one of these 2 things you now see on your screen. They're either observing, they're temporarily quiet because they're observing to gather more information to utilize in their thoughts, or they're strategically refraining from contributing to a certain conversation. Maybe they're strategically refraining because it's not a good time for them to add their input, or maybe they're strategically refraining because smart, assertive people recognize when they don't have anything valuable to contribute to a conversation, so they strategically refrain. You know, it's kind of like the old saying of crying wolf, right? Like if you really want people to pay attention to you when you have something important to say, then refrain from saying anything if you don't have anything important to add. So smart, assertive people do that. But suffice it to say, and summarize it to say, assertive behavior is clearly critical in the commercial construction industry. I don't care what your position is anywhere on the org chart. One of the chapters, by the way, in the book that I mentioned earlier that's coming out later this year, I literally have a chapter called The Meek Shall Inherit Nothing. Because it's my personal opinion from my own 25 years of experience working in the industry and from talking to many, many others and observing many, many others who have had very successful careers, that in my opinion, being shy is the single biggest disadvantage in the industry. So I'm saying being shy just to say it in a short, quick way. I'm saying being shy, being passive, being non-assertive, and you fill in the blank with any of those words. And in my opinion, since I'm talking to a group of women who work in and around the commercial construction industry today, in my opinion, that is a much bigger disadvantage than being a woman. People ask me that all of the time. They say, you know, Coty, was it a huge disadvantage being a woman in the industry? Of course, yes. How big can I say yes? Yes, underlying 5,000 times. However, it's nowhere near, in my opinion, as big of a disadvantage as it would be to be a shy or a passive or a non-assertive person. So it seems to me that if all of the things are being equal, an assertive person will excel farther than a passive person, man or woman. Just a little interesting side note that I wanted to throw in there for everyone's consideration. So back to the real power of assertiveness, here's the thing. Understanding and demonstrating that assertive behavior alone in and of itself, it doesn't really unleash the real power of assertiveness. So then, you know, in my opinion, it doesn't ensure that just because you're being assertive, that anyone will listen to what you're saying or buy into what you're saying or in the end gives you what you want. So therefore, what improves your odds? You know, how do you unleash the real power of assertiveness in order to get maximum return? So I think the best way to explain it is to use like a simple baseball analogy. So here goes. Let's look at a baseball diamond and think about first base, second base, third base, home. Okay, so first base in the real power of assertiveness is just to exhibit assertive behavior, right? You have to understand and you have to consistently demonstrate that assertive behavior, which includes, like we talked about, asking for what you want and clearly being able to articulate why it's a good idea. So let's just call the assertive behavior first base. So then what's second base? Second base is whatever you are asserting needs to include articulation of a very clear return on investment to the person that you're talking to. That is a huge, huge key. It's a big leap from first base to second. If you want your voice to be heard, and you want to be able to make a difference, and you want to be able to move your own goals forward that are in conjunction with the overall good of the company, then you need to be able to articulate that what it is that you're asserting has a clear potential ROI, particularly to the person that you are talking to, particularly to the person you are trying to seek support from. And then, of course, similarly or tangentially as it relates to the company as a whole. If you do first base without doing second base, it's much, much less effective. Now, what's third base? Third base is like the existential leap, okay, the philosophical leap that, in my opinion, makes all the difference in the world. If you're doing first base and you're doing second base, but you don't stand with confidence in third base, then you're missing the real power of the assertiveness. And it goes something like this. Third base happens, you kind of reach third base of assertiveness when you realize, not anyone else, when you realize and then can thus stand in the belief system that when you assert your desires, your opinions, your ideas, your wants, that it's really a statement of what you are worth. Let me walk you through what I mean by that. This is a state of mind. This is a philosophical approach. What I'm saying is, if I come knocking on your door and you're my boss, and I come knocking on your door because I want 5 minutes of your time to talk to you about X, my assertiveness to knock on your door is because I'm standing in the belief that that is in your best interest. Not that it's just in my best interest, but that it's in your best interest, my boss, to listen to what I'm saying. That is a huge psychological leap, but that's the real power of assertiveness playing itself out. When you assert yourself or your ideas, your opinions, your goals, your objectives, it's because you are essentially stating, without words, but with your behavior, you're stating that time spent with me is valuable. So that's why you have no trouble knocking on the door asking for 5 minutes. You're not doing that person harm, you're doing that person good, because spending 5 minutes with you is valuable. So it's standing in the confidence and belief system that your assertive behavior is coming from a silent statement, a silent but powerful statement that I am unique, I have value, my worth is high, and spending time with me and listening to what I'm saying and taking what I say into account is smart of you, is valuable to you. That is a huge psychological leap. And then, of course, to finish the analogy and kind of score the run and come around to home, this is what happens when you've got the full power of assertiveness working for you. You clearly do it at first base with assertive behavior. You recognize the importance of stating an ROI at second base. At third base, you stand in the belief in yourself that spending time with you is valuable and listening to your input is smart. And that's why you have no trouble asserting yourself or asking for people's ear or asking for people's time. And then when you come around to home base, you have scored when over time you have created a sense that there is a welcome mat, if you will. Think of it like every office in your company has a welcome mat outside the door. And think of it as the welcome mat has your name on it, like, welcome, Coty, please come in, or welcome, fill in your name, please come in. And you sense that there is this, I'm speaking figuratively, of course, but you sense that there is a welcome mat outside the door of your boss and your boss's boss and everyone that you perceive to be of influence in your company, because others have come to realize and have the same belief system that you had at third base. You follow me? So if you're standing and believing in that at third base, then you know you're home when over time you can sense that other people share that same belief. And that's why there's a welcome mat outside their door, because they know that, hey, when so-and-so comes knocking, fill in your name. When so-and-so comes knocking, I should take that call, or I should take that meeting, or I should give up that 5 minutes, or I should listen very intently to what such and such person is saying. Why? Because I have learned from previous experience with this person that when I do that, there is a tangible return on my effort or a return on my investment in that time. And that is the real power of assertiveness. Think about it in terms of that baseball diamond analogy. The actual assertive behavior is only first base. Everything else happens when you go to second and third and round to home. And that's item number 2 on our agenda. Moving to item number 3, the project manager myth. So there's our project manager holding his plans with his hard hat with his project in the background. What is he thinking that makes up the project manager myth? Well, it goes something like this. Here's Mr. Project Manager or Miss Project Manager, and what he's thinking and believing to be true about his career is I'm on the fast track to the top, and when I get there, I'm going to be great at it. And this is what I have coined the project manager myth, because in my career, in my experiences, in watching many construction professionals, men and women, across 25 years, across the entire country, I find this to be 100% not true. So here is a widely held belief. Let's just say it goes something like this. The best and the brightest construction professionals become great project managers. Or, as you see in parentheses, should strive to become great project managers. Generally speaking, that's a widely held belief. It goes back even as far as people being in construction management schools, like the one I went to, where much of the curriculum revolves around project management skills and project management knowledge. So if that's a widely held belief, but if it's a myth, then what's fueling the myth? You know, what are the myths and the misconceptions that fuel that belief system? I think they're made up of things like this. Number 1, there's a misconception that project managers are the most valuable people in a construction company. Number 2, project managers somehow have the inside track to promotions or to the top of the executive management ranks. Or number 3, project managers have the skills that are needed to excel at the top. So because all of those myths and misconceptions are out there, they fuel that belief that the best and the brightest construction professionals become great project managers. But let's start to sort out, if you will, some of the myths from some of the truths and see what we can learn from it, see what we all can learn from it for our careers and for our career choices moving forward. I don't care where you are in your career. If you're just right out of school, you know, you're in your first 5 years in the industry, or you're a veteran and you're 25 years into it like I am. I don't care. Let's take a minute and stop and sort out the myths from the truth so that we can help ourselves and help others that are coming into the industry. So let's talk about the truth about project management or project managers and your career choices. Number 1, there are other positions in commercial construction companies that are often equal to or more valuable than project managers. That's just straight up true, and most people fail to recognize that. But let me just point out some of them so that in case you're wondering, okay, well then what positions are those? Here are some examples that I have seen time and time and time again be far more valuable than project managers, be far more highly compensated than project managers, and carry more authority and influence within a construction company than project managers. Number 1, project superintendent. In large and very large, sophisticated general contracting companies, for example, sometimes the project managers are equal to or more valuable than project managers, and that simply is often caused by laws of supply and demand. You know, there are just very few. There is a dying breed of highly skilled, highly competent project superintendents. So because their laws of supply and demand are in the favor of project superintendents, people who work very hard to become excellent project superintendents are very highly regarded and very highly rewarded. Number 2, pre-construction managers. Depending on the type of company that you work for, pre-construction managers as well as chief estimators, which is the next bullet point on my list here, those two positions become incredibly influential and incredibly important in helping a commercial construction company to grow and make money. And last but not least, business development executives. This one is a doozy of a point. If you can be a successful business development executive, which is simply a fancy way of saying sales, if you can help bring revenue, bring projects, particularly negotiated or quasi-negotiated work into a construction company, then you are golden. And that company will likely very, very much regard you, very much reward you, and hold you in a highly influential position that is significantly higher than project managers or senior project managers or even project executives. Number two, in the truth about project management and career choices, you keep in mind you may pay a very high price to become a truly great project manager. I don't mean a so-so project manager. I mean you will pay a high price to become a truly qualified, capable, excellent project manager. And you'll pay the price in terms of time, in terms of money that you make. By the way, let me back up. When I say time, what I mean by that is you'll pay the price of it will take you a long time in your career to become a truly great project manager. You can't become a truly great project manager after one or two projects. That doesn't equate. One doesn't equate to the other. So by definition, in order to become a truly great project manager, you work on several projects, and they often need to be large, complex projects that take a long time to complete. So kind of if you just do the math, in order to become a truly great project manager, you will sacrifice, it could be 10 years of your career, it could be 20 years of your career, depending upon what type of company you work for, and how large that company is, and how large the projects are that they pursue and build, et cetera, et cetera. So depending on some of those factors, you will pay a high price to become a truly great project manager in terms of the length of time that it sucks up, if you will, of your career. Now, similarly in money, you may pay a high price because the value of a great project manager is the value of a great project manager. So it's whatever it is, whatever the market is bearing for that great project manager. So if you stay essentially the same position for a very long period of time, you're limiting yourself to essentially, what that position is worth on the street. So you might, go from the lower end of that market range to the higher end of that market range, but in theory, it would be difficult for your employer or a construction company to pay you a lot more than that a great project manager is worth on the street. So just keep that in mind. Number 3 of the bullet points is a really important one in terms of the price that you pay to become a truly great project manager. What happens is when you become a truly great project manager, you're a truly great project manager. So I know it sounds a little funny, but it bears stating because that's what you're really good at. You're really great at managing a project. But there's all kinds of other things that happen in a construction company in order for that construction company to be successful. There's a whole list of other things that are important that you know how to do that don't have anything to do with project management or have little to do with project management. So all these other things, like do you know about superintendents? Do you know about estimating? Do you know about pre-con management? Do you know about human resources? Do you know about accounting? Do you know about the almighty important business development and bringing work into the company? All of those things are, for the most part, not focused on or not learned about in project management. So as you become a truly great project manager, you do so at the peril, if you will, of these other things that could make you more well-rounded. And so I say all these things just so that you know that if it really is a career goal to become a truly great project manager, oh my gosh, by all means, go for it, do it, be great, love it. Just recognize that it will cost you in these other ways, so be sure that it is something that you really want and that that is in line with your ultimate career goals. Number 3, about the truth of project management and career choices. This is a difficult one, but a lot of people miss it. So I want to point it out so that everyone walks away with just a little bit more wide-eyed understanding that because project managers work out in the field, right, at their projects, day in and day out, they are out of sight. What I mean by out of sight is they're out of sight of, typically speaking, of the owners of the company, of the executive managers of the company, of the influencers and the decision makers of the company, who are not out on site every day. They're in the main office for the most part. I'm speaking stereotypically. Are there exceptions to what I'm saying? Of course. But I'm not talking about the exceptions. I'm talking about the general rule. So for the most part, project managers go to work every day at their project, which is wherever it is. And all of the decision makers and the owners of the company, for the most part, go to work every day at the main office. So project managers just kind of suffer from that, logistical challenge, right? It's not that anybody's doing anything wrong. It's not anybody's fault. It's just the way that it is. So when you're a PM, for the most part, you're kind of out of sight, out of mind, which is like, ouch, right? It's sorry. It sucks, right? But it just happens to be true, and not just for the project managers, but for any of the other people who go to work every day in the field. So it's just something to keep aware of. It doesn't mean don't do it. It just means be aware of it so that you can work. You have to proactively work to overcome this issue, because it can be challenging to develop relationships with all the executive managers and all the decision makers when you're out in the field and they're in the main office on a daily basis, as well as all the internal support teams as well. And all of those things are key to successful advancement in the industry. And last but not least, let me just make another final point about project management. Great project managers, by definition, are project-focused people. That's just like a duh, right? They're really good at it, hence they are great project managers. But here's the rub. Great executive managers, the people that are above the project manager level, the people that are running the company, great executive managers are not project-focused people. They are company-focused people. And this requires a much more well-rounded knowledge base about how to run a construction company, which requires many, many things besides building a building, and a very different set of skills. So keep this in mind. This can be the most difficult issue for project managers to overcome, because most of the time they don't recognize the deficit. They think, oh, well, I'm a great project manager, and that's the essence of what we do for a living, so therefore I must be equipped and experienced and qualified to go higher up the ladder. And then they find that that is typically not true. So beware of the myth, so that you can be open to other options that may take you farther, faster. So to illustrate, I'm going to walk you super quick through an alternative career path, and it's one that I'm very familiar with because it is mine. So I'm using my own to show you what I mean. But just know that my career path that I've had is similar to lots of other people in the commercial construction industry that I have met or that I've talked to, who have contacted me, who've had very similar, what you might call non-project management or more creative career path options that have made people more well-rounded. And then you will see you have a better chance of going up the ladder faster and more success when you do get to the top because of your more well-rounded experiences at the bottom. So if you notice on the screen real quick here, I'm just going to buzz through this super fast, that I started my career with Turner. And you'll notice that the left side of the screen, I'm in the blue area, I'm calling that being in the field. And on the right side of the screen, in the yellow area, yellowish-orangish area, I'm calling that working in the office. So I want you to see how I had 5 or 6 different positions in my first 5 or 6 years with Turner, purposely bouncing around from the field to the office, field to the office, field to the office. Why do that? Because then you build relationships in both camps, and you can start to earn respect and admiration and get some skill sets in both camps. After Turner, then I jumped ship from the general contractor side of things and went to the owner side of the things, and I became the national manager of construction for Blockbuster Entertainment. At the time, Blockbuster was booming, and we were building 400 stores a year. So you'll see that I'm showing the national manager of construction thing kind of straddling half of the field and half of the office, because that's what it was like. But notice the well-roundedness, again, starting with the GC side, then switching over to the owner side, then switching back to the GC side. I went to work for a small, locally owned, negotiated design-build firm in South Florida, the opposite of big Turner, right, the top 10 GCs of the world. It was the opposite. but I did business development instead of operations, so that I learned how to help bring work and negotiate relationships and nurture relationships and bring work into an organization, and then became Senior VP of Pre-Con and got involved in much more pre-con activities and estimating activities. But again, just showing you this career path visually so that you can see how I danced around and did a variety of different things in the field, in the office, with GCs, on the owner side, with various sizes of GCs, and just getting a well-rounded industry foundation. And then, of course, at the top, after working for Miller Construction Company, then I started my own consulting company and did owner's rep and program management for hospital projects. So again, I just put that on there to show you. It's like work for a GC, work for the owner, work for an owner, work for a GC, work for an owner. And then also bouncing around from the field to the office, from the field to the office, from the field to the office. So what is very valuable to executive level management is to have bounced around and done as many things as possible, touch as many things as possible, so that you can become competent in a wide variety, a wide aspect of activities that are involved in order to run a successful company, as opposed to becoming really, really great at the one position where the supply almost always exceeds the demand. It's just an interesting, different way to look at things. So to wrap up the project manager myth, I say take full advantage of it. Don't just be aware of it, take advantage of it. If it's your ultimate goal to become a great project manager, then by all means go for it and be the best. Love it and do it. I'm just saying that if you aspire to eventually go something beyond project management, then take advantage of the myth. Pull yourself out of all of the pool of project managers that are out there duking it out for the next big job. Let them have it. Let them have that next big job that's going to suck up 3 years of their career. In the meantime, you might be able to do 2 or 3 things that make you more valuable in that 2 or 3 year time span. So explore more creative career options that may help you get where you want to go faster, and more importantly, help you be better prepared for success when you get there. And that's the project manager myth. Okay, moving on. It's not about being liked, accepted, or respected, although all those things would be great, right? But what is the point we're trying to get across here? I'm saying that being liked and accepted and respected, of course, those are all ideal things, and we all want those as women working inside male-dominated environments. But I'm saying they aren't necessarily necessary to get things moving in the right direction. And focusing on being liked or accepted or respected can be a distraction if you, again, focus on wanting them or needing them too much. So what I have found to be true, and in talking with many other women and minorities in male-dominated environments, is that those things tend to come after, underline the word after, you accomplish something first that's much, much, much more important. So what is that? And it seems to be something like this. You have to prove your value through contribution to the overall team. Or if we're not talking about an overall team and just your boss, right, or whoever he is, then his objectives, right? You have to prove your value through contribution. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is being liked, accepted, and respected follows tangible proof of that contribution. And here is the key. It's what you are contributing that drives it. It's what you contribute that's key. It absolutely, positively has to be something that he can relate to and admire. That's the key. If we stopped right there, if you got nothing else from today's webinar, you got your money worth and your time's worth right there. You want to earn likability, acceptance, and respect from men in these male-dominated industries, you have to do something they relate to and something they admire, not something they don't relate to or don't admire. Let's go back to baseball and use a baseball analogy. If you play on the team and you bat .338, you have 26 home runs and 97 RBIs at the end of the season, hello, you just made some new friends. That's exactly how you need to think about it. You want to play on the team, you perform like that, that's something they admire, right? A fellow baseball player admires a fellow baseball player who can bat .338. Why? It's hard. A fellow baseball player will admire a fellow baseball player who can hit 26 home runs and 97 RBIs. Why? It's hard, and he knows it's hard, so he admires it. So you do that, and you make new friends. They'll cheer your name. But you've got to get in the game, and you've got to help him to win, or them, the team, to win. It's harder, stay with me on the baseball analogy, it's harder if you book travel arrangements, work the concession stand, or redesign the uniforms. That's harder to do. It's easier if you actually play baseball really, really well. And that's why the analogy works so perfectly. You can't do something on the sidelines and expect them to relate to it or admire it. They might a little, but not very much. What they admire is people who can play baseball really, really well. Or in this case, drop the analogy, go back to reality. Or in this case, you got to build buildings and run a construction company really, really well. That's what they can relate to. That's what they admire. You show them you can contribute to that, and you're in. So you got to play with the team. You got to contribute something you admire. And when you do that, the difference that they feel, quote unquote, so I have difference in quotes, the difference starts to fade. Once they can see that you're out on the field and you're playing baseball as well as they're playing, and sometimes even better than they're playing, then you just made a bunch of new friends, and that's all there is to it. That's why that's a short one, by the way. It's not about being liked or accepted or expected. It's about contributing something they value, and they have to relate to it, and they have to admire it. Once you do that, the difference they see in you fades. And that was number 4 on our agenda. Moving on to number 5, and we're getting into the home stretch. This is what I call, hey, hint, hint, want a huge advantage? Let me show you where you can find one. I want you to learn to work from this intersection. The intersection of the industry we're in, called construction management, if you will. I'm just using that as a broad term, commercial construction, general contracting, construction management, whatever you want to call it. Work at the intersection of that and this very special quote from Dr. Maya Angelou, and here it is. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people never forget how you made them feel. Some of you may have heard that before. Great. Be reminded of it. And now let's start thinking about how it applies to the commercial construction industry and how you can use it to your advantage. This is huge. Apply this to your work in our industry and watch what happens. You will get promoted. You will make more money. The company you work for will be more successful, and yada, yada, and yada, yada, and then some. Why is there opportunity in this? It's because construction professionals and the companies who embrace Dr. Maya Angelou's words, they do very, very well. What do I mean by that? And by the way, side note, how do I know? I used to work for a company who did this very, very, very well. And I figured out that that's why they're so successful. So I'm speaking from firsthand experience, and I've seen others in other companies use it as well. I know this works. I know like I know my shoe size. This works. Why does it work? It works because 99% of the industry completely sucks at it. 99% of the industry is focusing on what you said and what you did, and not focusing on how you make people feel. And because 99% of the industry sucks at it, the 1% who gets this right and works from that distinction does very, very well. So let's break it down. Know that our industry is full of poor communicators. I think we would all kind of give ourselves a bad report card when it comes to that. Are there exceptions to what I'm saying? Of course. Don't live in my exception. Don't be Pistol Pete and blow holes in what I'm saying. Listen to the general rule of what I'm saying. The general rule of what I was saying is that for the most part, our industry is full of people that don't communicate very well. However, when we do communicate well, our best communication is information-based, okay? It's the stuff where we're conveying info or we're getting info about facts, figures, activities, and all the other tangible stuff that's involved in building a building. So when we do communicate halfway decently, we're communicating information-based communication. We discuss who, what, where, when, et cetera, you get it. All of that is essential, though, right? All of that stuff is essential to the construction process. You can't sit there and say, well, Coty, it's not important to communicate all those facts and figures and activities. Yeah, it is important. I agree. All of it is essential to the construction process, but it's the stuff people eventually do forget, just like Dr. Maya Angelou says. And by the way, side note, it's a good thing that much of that gets forgotten out of the human psyche, because most of the time we unintentionally get a lot of it wrong. A lot of the facts and the figures and the activities and the events and stuff that we try to communicate, we unintentionally get wrong. Because remember, what we do for a living is not a perfect science. It's not 2 + 2 = 4, build a building. It's not like that. So we put estimates of things together. We guess how long it's going to take to build a building. We guess how long it's going to take to get a certain supplies delivered to the job site. We guess at how much things are going to cost. And we do so with great intentions, and we do so hopefully with education and good intent and lots of knowledge, of course, all of that. But keep in mind, if you were to go back and look at any particular project, no matter how professionally it was run, no matter how great the people were that were on it, all kinds of things get said and done that were unintentionally off by a little bit, because it's not a perfect science what we do. So thank goodness, in the human psyche, much of that eventually gets forgotten. So keep that in mind, that all this information-based communication that we do, it's like baking soda. I always say the baking soda analogy. It's essential, right? We just agreed it's essential. It's essential to make cake, but it doesn't differentiate one cake from another. And that's why it's essential but undeterminative, right? Essential but doesn't have a lot of effect on the outcome. To use the cake analogy, it's essential to make cake, but it doesn't make somebody want to order another slice, right? It doesn't make somebody love it or hate it or want to order another slice and, come back to your restaurant and order another slice. That's the point I'm making. And as Dr. Maya Angelou would teach us with her quotes, virtually everything that is in that arena, all that stuff that gets said and done in the construction process will eventually be largely forgotten. But what your clients and your colleagues never forget is how you made them feel along the way of the process. And that is the biggest distinction, and 99% of the industry just doesn't get it. They think it's all about the facts and the figures and the activities and the events. Are they essential? They are essential, but they're baking soda. And what gets remembered is whether or not they enjoyed the cake. So here's the thing. Master construction management activities, and you'll get the building built, right? Learn how to be good at that, you'll get the building built. But master what I call experience management, not construction management, experience management. Get really good at that, and you'll earn repeat clients for the company that you work for, and you'll write your ticket to the top. That is what most people have no clue about. And the people who get it, the people who are actually managing the client's experience, not just all of the details of what gets said and done along the way, but how do they feel about you as a construction company throughout the process and when the process is all said and done. Do they like you? Would they call you a friend? Do they trust you? How have you managed their experience? These are two totally different things, and most of the industry is clueless to the distinction or doesn't know how to make the switch. And here's my theory. Since I'm talking to a bunch of women in the industry, hint, hint, this may just be the most important area where women have the upper hand. Just in terms of, again, speaking stereotypically, in terms of being more sensitive to how people feel and what experience people are having in your presence. That makes all the difference in the world. That makes companies come back to you as repeat clients and negotiate the next job instead of bidding it out to 5 other GCs. So those are the 5 things on our agenda. I'm going to whip through real quick some momentum building ideas. some things that you can start exploring over the next couple of days in order to take what you've learned today and put it into action, and then we'll cover a few questions. Number one, I want you to start paying attention to your Pistol Pete and your know-it-all. Remember those two voices that are inside your head. Learn to ignore them when they show up uninvited or they prevent progress. Remember, your Pistol Pete is great for reviewing shop drawings. Your Pistol Pete is great looking at somebody's bid package. Your Pistol Pete is great for reviewing contract documents. But your Pistol Pete is not great when thinking about new ideas, when trying to manage people, when trying to manage through change, et cetera, et cetera. So the higher you go up the corporate construction ladder in the commercial construction industry, the less you will need your Pistol Pete and your know-it-all. So learn to recognize his voice in your head. Start practicing. Secondly, teach your colleagues about this concept. Spread the word. Teach them how to recognize and ignore their own Pistol Pete. Because remember, we all have one. Everybody will be able to relate. And if you can, seek agreement from everyone that when you're in meetings, when you're having discussions, if somebody's Pistol Pete comes out, you give everybody permission to call them out on it. It's like, hey, who invited Pistol Pete in here? You kind of make a little joke about it, make light of it, but it brings everybody's awareness to it, and it helps to be able to quiet or sideline that Pistol Pete when he kind of shows up uninvited. But everybody needs to be able to do it without, fear of reciprocity or fear of judgment. So that's something that you can start doing right away. Pay attention to your Pistol Pete and help others to do the same. Number two, do you have something you want your company to let you do, or an idea that you think will help? This is an exercise in assertiveness. Stop and think. Can you clearly and very quickly, meaning it needs to be short, can you clearly and very quickly articulate the potential ROI to the person that you are talking to? Think about that. Practice that skill before you go a door knocking or a phone calling. And do you, underline the word you, do you believe your input is valuable? Again, that was third base. We talked about that. When you start living in third base, this will get easy for you. It will get easier for you to knock on people's doors and get easier for you to dial their phones because you know that your input is valuable. And you can start proving that one conversation at a time. So just think of it like that. It won't happen overnight, but one conversation at a time, one tangible proof at a time. And last but not least, number three, start practicing your experience management skills no matter where you are in the industry, no matter what your current position is. Just start thinking about whatever is happening, whether you're out on a project or you're working inside the office on a project or whatever you're doing. Start thinking about the types of questions you can ask your colleagues and you can ask your clients or your prospective clients that you're trying to win over. It starts by thinking about questions that sound something like this. All project details aside, how are you feeling? Right? How are you feeling about everything thus far? I mean, who asks those questions in our industry? Not enough people. That's the problem. Or you might say, is there anything more we can be doing to make the experience more enjoyable? And if the word enjoyable is too much of a stretch because 99% of people do not enjoy building buildings, then substitute the word enjoyable with less stressful. Is there anything we can be doing to make this process less stressful for you? But the key is you got to be brief, you got to be sincere, you got to mean it, you got to no mushiness in there, no mockery in there. You got to go straight at it and mean it with sincerity because you care about the answer, and whatever they tell you, you're going to do your best to act on it in their best interest. And that's how you start practicing experience management. You get good at it, and you'll skyrocket your career. Last but not least, and we'll get into the Q&A. I would like to offer a free raffle to everyone who's on the call today. There's only two things you need to do to enter. Number one, connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not already. Send me a connection request and put something in the message that tells me you were on today's session. And email your feedback on what you learned today, how helpful it was to you. Email that to me at my email address you see on the screen, Coty, C-O-T as in Tom, Y, at mail.thebluebook.com. If you do those two things, you automatically go into the free raffle, and you will win a 60-minute private coaching session with me over the phone. You can ask me anything you want about your career. I do this sort of thing all the time. and I'm happy to provide a free complimentary session to today's raffle winner. The deadline for doing the two things is tomorrow night, April 5th, tomorrow night, Friday night, April 5th by 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just send me a connection request on LinkedIn and email your feedback to me at cody@mail.thebluebook.com. And if you have any questions about how the Blue Book may be able to help you and your company to grow, then please let me know that as well, because again, I will be following up and sending each of you a link to more information about how to take advantage of the new ProView tool. Jennifer, it is almost 2 o'clock, it looks like, so I'm going to turn things back over to you, and we can take a few minutes for Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Coty. That's a lot of great information. At this time, we will take questions from participants. Again, please use the questions box in the GoToWebinar toolbox on the side of your screen to submit a question. We do have several in the queue already. The first one says, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling to step into a management role because top executives consider them the best at the one thing they're doing, so they won't ever see them leaving their role to keep moving up? It's a constant trouble for most women in the construction industry.
Can you, I'm so sorry because I know that time is running short, but can you repeat that? I'm not sure I understood it. Can you say it again?
Okay, yes. What advice would you give to someone who is struggling to step into a management role because top executives consider them the best at the one thing they're doing, so they won't ever see them leaving their role?
Like so do you think the person means, like, let's say they're a really good estimator, and so then they have difficulty getting promoted?
Into that role.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yes, I follow the question now. And I think this is a great question because, you know, first of all, I think it happens to a lot of people that are really competent, right? Because if you're really competent at being that estimator or that chief estimator, right, you're doing a really good job, you almost feel punished, if you will, right, by you're doing it so well they can't afford to not have you do it, right? So the way you get around that, or at least what I've done in my career and what I've seen other people do, is you just have to show them why it's more valuable to move you to the new position. Stop focusing on how valuable you are in the current position. So, like, let's say you're a chief estimator. I'm making this up, okay? I'm making up a hypothetical example. Let's say you're a chief estimator and you're really, really great at it, okay? So then the person has a hard time thinking about moving you out of that chief estimator role because then he's got to worry about filling it, and that sucks, and that's no fun, and blah, blah, blah. So the way you make that enticing to him is you need to show him how if he moves you to the position you really want, like let's say maybe you want to be vice president of business development, you want to get out and start, you know, exercising your chops in business development, which, by the way, is a very smart thing to do. So if you show him that you have a clear and tangible path where you're going to make him more money being vice president of business development than you make him as chief estimator, and plus, in addition to that, here's my plan to hire somebody to replace myself, or this is my plan to promote so-and-so within the organization to replace me, then in combination, those two things are harder for him to ignore. First of all, you have to show him how you can help him cover the hole that you're leaving. But more importantly than that, you show your boss that you're more valuable to the company in the position that you want. That's key. That's just money. He'll see that.
Okay, great. Second question. It says, I am in my first year at a small construction company. I've learned so much. I'm trying to build up the confidence to ask for a raise. How can I be assertive to do this? How is there an ROI on a raise? And should I be listening to my self-sabotage and believe that I don't deserve this because others have more experience than me?
Oh, I feel a little pain in that. I feel a little pain in that question, so I'm giving a virtual hug to whoever it is that wrote that. How do you get a return on a raise? That is a great question. I think what she's saying is, you know, how do I ask for a raise and make that person realize that giving me a raise is smart? The way that I always, I guess, approach things is, first of all, to answer her first question about asking for a raise. I mean, you can't ask for a raise for a certain position beyond what it's worth. So everyone needs to understand that. If there's a certain range, I'm making this up, you know, if there's a market range of $30,000 to $35,000 for the position that she's in, you know, or $40,000 to $45,000 for the position that she's in, then it's very difficult to ask for a raise above that $45,000. It just is, because, you know, it's worth what it's worth. So just keep that in mind. You always need to be working within reason to what is an acceptable range of market value for any position. But secondly, to answer kind of her second question, which was more of a psychological one, I guess I didn't ever have trouble asking for a raise, and I'm hoping to share this sentiment with whoever asked the question. If you believe that you are a valuable asset to that company, then it's in that company's best interest to keep you happy. So if you really believe that, then that's the position from which you need to behave and act. So if you need to ask for a raise, you do so by saying, I'm asking for a raise, and these are the 6 things that I'm going to do to earn it, right? That these are the 6 things I'm going to do that I didn't used to do that weren't giving me the raise. And the other reason I'm asking for is because I want to continue to work here. I see myself with long-term potential to help this company. I think it's in our mutual best interest to keep me gainfully employed and appropriately compensated so that I'm not distracted by anything else and my head's down and in the game. That's how I have often done it in the past. But asking for a raise without stating what else you're going to do is a quick path to a no. If you're being paid to do something now, and you're being paid to do these 12 things, whatever they are, then obviously they're paying you to do those 12 things, and they're paying you that amount of money. So if you want to ask for more money, you need to tell them what else it is that you're going to do for the more money. That's key. That's another side note that's key, in my opinion.
Great, thank you. Next question, we'll do this one last question, and then the others will just have to be answered offline just to respect everyone's time. I'm a new manager, and also the youngest member of my department. How do I develop management skills and manage people that are significantly older than me?
I wonder if she's saying that she essentially doesn't have any management skills going into it. I wonder if, I'm just curious, obviously I don't know who this person is, but she's saying she doesn't have management skills?
No, it says I am a new manager, but I'm also the youngest member of the department. How do I develop management skills to manage people that are significantly older than me?
That is a good one. That is a great one. You know what? I don't want to answer that question quickly because I know we're running out of time. I want to think about that one. That is a really, really good question. If you don't mind, I'd like to give myself time to think about that one on top of whatever are the other ones that are in the queue.
Okay.
And then I'll respond and send it out to everyone because I think that is a really good question that a lot of people are starting to sit in, you know, with a young, certain groups of people, you know, that are on the younger, more assertive, aggressive side, you know, get promoted fairly quickly in their careers and then find themselves sitting in that challenge, right, where there's people on their team that are older than them. So I want to really think about that answer. So let me push pause and include that answer with the rest of the other unanswered questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Coty. Do you have any additional comments before we wrap it up for today?
I think that's it, but I just want to say thank you to everyone for your time and your attention today. I hope that everyone learned something and got perhaps re-inspired and reinvigorated to go out into the industry and create the career that you want. And if there's anything that I can do to help you along the way, you have my contact information. And I wish you much success and go out there and do it.
Great. That concludes our online program. Thank you so much, Coty Fournier, and all of today's participants. If you would like a copy of the presentation, a PDF copy, please email jennifer@mydcn.com. This program has ended, and you may now disconnect. Thank you.